My stepmother's Thanksgiving insults backfired. She didn't realize I paid off their mortgage. Some wounds never fully heal. They just form calluses that make you stronger. That's what I told myself as I stared at my phone, my father's name glowing on the screen like a beacon from a past I'd tried to outrun for nearly a decade. I let it ring 4 times, debating whether to answer. My thumb hovered over the decline button, muscle memory from years of missed calls and ignored voicemails. But this time, maybe it was the November chill in my apartment or the stack of holiday cards I'd been avoiding writing, I pressed accept. Olivia? His voice sounded thinner than I remembered, stretched like an old sweater that had been washed too many times. Hi, Dad. The words felt foreign in my mouth, like speaking a language I'd once been fluent in but had long since forgotten. A pause stretched between us, filled with the static of unsaid apologies and accusations. It's been a while, he finally said, master of the understatement. 3 years since we'd spoken properly. 7 since I'd set foot in the house I grew up in. 9 since my mother's funeral, when Sharon had inserted herself into our shattered family portrait with the precision of a surgeon and the compassion of a tax collector. Yeah. I curled up in my window seat, watching the city lights blur through the first snowfall of the season. It has. He cleared his throat. I was wondering, Sharon and I were hosting Thanksgiving this year. The boys will be home from college and... He trailed off, as if suddenly remembering that the boys were his stepsons, not his daughter. Not me. You want me to come? It wasn't a question. I knew what he was asking, even if he couldn't say it directly. That was always Dad's way, circling around difficult things like a cautious animal. It would mean a lot to me, Liv. The childhood nickname slipped out, and I closed my eyes against the unexpected wave of longing it brought. For a moment, I was 12 again, sitting on the porch swing with him, counting fireflies and making up stories about where they were going. Before Sharon. Before everything changed. I don't think that's a good idea. My response was automatic, a defense mechanism built from years of disappointed hopes. Sharon and I don't exactly mesh well. She's different now, he insisted, though his voice lacked conviction. We've all been through a lot these past few years. Something in his tone caught my attention, a weariness that went beyond our strained relationship. Dad had always been the eternal optimist, the one who saw silver linings in hurricane clouds. This new fragility sent a flicker of concern through me. Are you okay? I asked, momentarily setting aside my grievances. Is everything all right with you and Sharon? Of course, he answered too quickly. Everything's fine. Just getting older, that's all. My father was a terrible liar, always had been. It was one of the things I'd loved most about him growing up. Mom used to joke that he'd give away Christmas presents early because he couldn't bear keeping secrets. The memory brought a reluctant smile to my face. Dad, what's really going on? He sighed, a heavy sound that seemed to travel through the miles between us. Nothing specific. It's just been a rough couple of years. The economy, you know. I thought it would be nice to have everyone together for once. I glanced at my calendar, at the plans I'd made with friends, other orphans of the holiday season who gathered each year for what we jokingly called Friendsgiving. People who didn't judge me, who had never made me feel like an intruder in my own life. People who had become my chosen family when my real one had splintered. I don't know. I hedged, already composing the text I'd send to cancel my other plans. Sharon made it pretty clear last time that I wasn't welcome. That was different. You were both angry. She told me I wasn't really part of the family anymore. The words still stung, sharp as the day they'd been spoken. She didn't mean it, Dad said, though we both knew that was a lie. Sharon had meant every syllable, and the silence that followed from him, his failure to defend me, had been the final cut that severed what remained of our relationship. I should say no. Every instinct built over years of self-preservation screamed at me to decline. Please, Olivia. There it was again, that unfamiliar fragility in his voice. One dinner. That's all I'm asking. Outside my window, the snow fell harder, coating the city in a blanket of white that made everything look deceptively soft and clean. I thought about holidays past, the ones before Mom got sick, when our house smelled like cinnamon and laughter, and the ones after Sharon, when I felt like a ghost haunting the corners of rooms where I used to belong. What time? I found myself asking, already questioning my own judgment. His relief was palpable. 3 o'clock? Same as always. Same as always. As if anything about our family was still the same. I'll be there, I promised, wondering if I was making a tremendous mistake. But Dad? I can't stay long. I have other commitments. A small lie to give myself an escape route. That's fine. Just having you, there will be enough. After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, snow casting blue shadows across the hardwood floors. I'd built a good life for myself in the years since I'd left home. A career that fulfilled me, friends who supported me, a space that was entirely my own. I'd done it all without them, proving Sharon wrong about the aimless, unmotivated girl she'd accused me of being. Yet here I was, agreeing to walk back into the lion's den, drawn by the thread-thin hope that maybe, just maybe, something had changed. I pulled up my calendar again and texted Maya, my closest friend. Rain check on Friendsgiving? Family drama calls. I'll bring extra wine next time to make up for it. Her response was immediate and concerned. Are you sure? The Sharon monster didn't exactly roll out the welcome mat last time. I wasn't sure. Not at all. But something in my father's voice, that unfamiliar note of defeat, had reached past my defenses. I'll be fine, I typed back. One dinner. What's the worst that could happen? As I pressed send, a chill that had nothing to do with the snow outside ran through me. I had the distinct feeling that I was about to find out exactly what the worst could be. The driveway looked shorter than I remembered. I parked my Audi, a testament to the career nobody in this house knew about, and studied the Colonial where I'd spent 18 years of my life. Christmas lights already framed the roofline, Sharon's trademark perfectionism on display. Always first in the neighborhood to decorate. My hands tightened around the steering wheel as memories surfaced. The oak tree where Dad built my swing. The steps where Mom photographed my first day of school. The attic window where I'd stargazed after she died. All preserved like a museum exhibit of someone else's life. I checked my reflection. Subtle makeup, sleek ponytail, designer blazer over silk. Armor, really. I dressed for a business meeting, not a family dinner, because that's what this was. A negotiation of old hurts. The porch light flickered on. They'd seen me. No more stalling. I grabbed the expensive Cabernet I'd brought and approached the door. Before I could knock, it swung open. Sharon stood there, blonde hair in the same severe bob she'd worn for years. Her smile was practiced, the kind reserved for unwelcome solicitors. Olivia, you're early. Not hello. Not it's good to see you. Just a reminder that I'd somehow failed within seconds of arrival. Traffic was lighter than expected, I replied, matching her coolness. I extended the wine bottle. Happy Thanksgiving. She examined the label with thinly veiled suspicion. How thoughtful. Come in before you let all the heat out. The foyer remained unchanged, except for the family photos. New ones had been added. Sharon's sons at graduation, at football games, at vacations I wasn't invited to. My high school graduation photo, once prominently displayed, had been relegated to a shadowy corner near the basement door. Olivia? Dad's voice came from the living room. He looked older than I expected, shoulders slightly stooped, hair more gray than brown. But his smile, that was the same, crinkling the corners of his eyes. You came. I said I would. I stepped forward, uncertain whether to hug him. He made the decision, pulling me into an embrace that felt both familiar and foreign. Over his shoulder, I caught Sharon's tight-lipped expression before she turned toward the kitchen. I'll let the boys know you're here. Dad drew back. You look good, Liv. Really good. Thanks. I smiled, genuinely this time. You look tired. He waved it off. Just the holiday rush. The hardware store's been busy. How's business? I asked, following him to the living room where a fire crackled in the stone fireplace. Getting by, he said vaguely. How about you? Still working at the Marketing firm?
No.
I started my own company 3 years ago. Digital marketing consultancy. His eyebrows rose. Your own company? Wow, Liv. That's impressive. Heavy footsteps announced my stepbrothers. Tyler and Jason had both inherited their mother's blonde hair and cool demeanor. Jason at least offered a cursory nod. Tyler, the elder at 26, merely glanced at me before addressing Dad. Mom says dinner's in 20. She wants to know if you've opened the good scotch yet. I was waiting for everyone to arrive, Dad replied pointedly. Tyler sighed dramatically.
Fine.
Hi, Olivia. Long time. How've you been? The words delivered like a recitation. Can't complain, I answered. Congratulations on graduating, by the way. I'd seen it on Dad's Facebook page, my only tenuous connection to this family. That was over 2 years ago, Tyler smirked. I know. I smiled blandly. I wasn't invited to the ceremony. An awkward silence descended, broken when Sharon called from the dining room. Robert, I could use your help with the turkey. Dad excused himself, leaving me with my stepbrothers. Jason, the younger at 24, attempted conversation. Nice car, he commented. Lease. Bought it outright last year. I replied, refusing to rise to the bait. How's law school? He looked surprised that I knew. It's fine. Tough, but... Jason, help me with these glasses, Sharon interrupted from the doorway. Her eyes flicked to me. Olivia, you can take a seat anywhere. We kept the same arrangement as always. The same arrangement meant the seat furthest from Dad, nearest the kitchen door, convenient for being sent on errands throughout dinner. Sharon's power play hadn't changed. As I moved to the dining room, I caught sight of myself in the hallway mirror. I straightened my shoulders, reminding myself that I wasn't the insecure 20-year-old who'd fled this house in tears after a brutal argument with Sharon. I was 30 now, successful, independent. Yet as I took my assigned seat, watching Sharon direct her sons like a general positioning troops, I couldn't help the familiar knot forming in my stomach. The table was set with her mother's china, the gravy boat positioned just so, the perfect Thanksgiving tableau. Everything in its proper place, except me. Dad emerged with the turkey, his smile strained. He caught my eye briefly, a silent plea for patience. You finally got time off from whatever it is you do? Sharon asked, taking her seat next to Dad. The question delivered with a raised eyebrow and dismissive tone suggesting my career was a hobby. I felt my jaw tighten, but forced a smile. Actually, I own the company. I make my own schedule. She blinked, momentarily thrown, before recovering. How nice for you. Tyler's been promoted to junior executive, you know. The youngest in his firm's history. Mother, please, Tyler said, though his smug expression betrayed his pleasure at the mention. I studied my father's face as he carved the turkey. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper, his movements more labored than I remembered. Something was wrong, beyond the usual tension of this forced family reunion. Wine, Dad, I offered, reaching for the bottle I'd brought. Not for your father, Sharon answered for him. Doctor's orders. My eyes met Dad's. Doctor's orders? This was new information. It's nothing, he said, reading my expression. Just getting older. Sharon redirected the conversation to Jason's law school achievements, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was missing something significant. I'd come here expecting the usual barrage of subtle insults and comparisons. Instead, I found my father diminished in some fundamental way, and Sharon, for all her practiced hostility, seemed almost protective of him. As I accepted the platter of turkey passed my way, I decided to observe more carefully. There was a current running beneath this performance of family harmony, something no one was saying aloud. And I intended to find out what it was. So, Olivia, Sharon began, delicately cutting her turkey into precise, tiny pieces, tell us about this company of yours. Is it just you working from your apartment, or do you actually have employees? Her emphasis on company made it sound like a child's pretend tea party. I took a sip of wine, buying time. Every Thanksgiving dinner with Sharon followed the same script, Questions designed as traps, conversations structured to highlight my supposed shortcomings against the golden achievements of her sons. I'd spent years dreading these exchanges. Now, I found them almost amusing in their predictability. "We're a team of 15, I replied calmly. "I have offices in the city and a satellite location opening in Chicago next month." Tyler nearly choked on his potatoes. 15 people? Working for you? I nodded, serving myself green beans. Plus our regular contractors. Digital marketing is competitive. You need specialized talent. Dad leaned forward, genuine interest lighting his tired eyes. "That's remarkable, Liv. What kind of clients do you work with?" Before I could answer, Sharon cut in. "Jason's been offered a summer associate position at Harrington and Bell. Very prestigious. Only 3 students from his class were selected." "Congratulations," I said to Jason, who at least had the grace to look slightly embarrassed at his mother's transparent redirection. "Thanks," he mumbled. "It's not final yet." "Of course it is," Sharon insisted. "Mr. Harrington practically guaranteed it when we had dinner with his family last month. He was very impressed with you." "That's exactly how nepotism works," I commented lightly, spearing a piece of turkey. The table went silent. Dad coughed uncomfortably. Sharon's smile tightened. "Some of us believe in the importance of family connections, Olivia. Those who have them, that is." The barb was unmistakable, a reminder that I had no powerful mother to arrange career opportunities for me. "You're right," I conceded with a smile. "I had to build my network from scratch. No shortcuts available." Tyler snorted. "Is that what you tell yourself? That struggling makes you somehow superior." "I don't need to tell myself anything," I replied. "Results speak for themselves." Sharon's eyes narrowed. "And what are these remarkable results? I don't recall seeing your name in any business publications." I almost mentioned the Forbes 30 Under 30 feature from last year, but stopped myself. I hadn't come here to compete in Sharon's status Olympics. "We're doing well," I said simply. "Our client retention rate is nearly perfect." "Fascinating," Sharon replied in a tone that suggested it was anything but. She turned to Dad. "Robert, tell Olivia about Tyler's new condo. The view of the harbor is spectacular." And so it went. Every attempt at genuine conversation redirected to showcase her son's achievements. Tyler's promotion, Jason's law review publication, the brothers' joint investment in a vacation property. Each accomplishment presented like a weapon aimed at my perceived inadequacy. Throughout it all, I watched my father. He participated in these conversations with rehearsed enthusiasm, but something was off. He barely touched his food. Twice, I caught him pressing his hand to his chest when he thought no one was looking. His complexion seemed gray beneath the warm dining room light. "Dad, are you feeling okay?" I finally asked during a lull in Sharon's monologue about Tyler's company retreat to Aspen. "He's fine," Sharon answered sharply before Dad could speak. "Just tired from preparing for this dinner that you couldn't even arrive on time for." I'd actually been early, but facts had never been important in Sharon's narratives. "I can speak for myself, Sharon," Dad said quietly, surprising all of us. "I'm all right, Liv. Just the usual holiday stress." Sharon's face flushed. She stood abruptly. "Time for dessert. Jason, help me bring in the pies." As they disappeared into the kitchen, I leaned toward Dad. "Seriously, what's going on? You look exhausted." He sighed, shoulders slumping slightly. "It's complicated, Liv. Try me." "Not now," he whispered, glancing toward the kitchen. "Later, maybe." Tyler, who'd been checking his phone, looked up. "If this is about Dad's heart condition, we're all aware of it. Except you, obviously, since you haven't bothered to be around." The words hit like a physical blow. Heart condition? What heart condition? Tyler's smug expression told me he'd achieved the effect he wanted. "Maybe if you called more than once a year, you'd know these things." Before I could respond, Sharon and Jason returned, balancing 3 pies and a tub of whipped cream. "Apple, pumpkin, or pecan?" Sharon asked brightly, as if the tension in the room wasn't thick enough to cut with the serving knife in her hand. "I'm not hungry," I said, still reeling from Tyler's revelation. "Dad, why didn't you tell me about your heart?" Sharon set the pies down with unnecessary force. Because it's nothing serious, and we didn't want to worry people who have clearly moved on with their lives. It's not nothing, I countered. Tyler just said. Tyler exaggerates, Sharon interrupted. It's a minor arrhythmia. Completely manageable. Dad wouldn't meet my eyes, focusing instead on adjusting his napkin. Let's not ruin dessert with medical talk. God forbid we discuss anything real, I muttered. Sharon's eyes flashed. You know what's real, Olivia? This family. The one you walked away from. The one that's been here, dealing with everything while you've been off playing entrepreneur in the city. I didn't walk away, Sharon. You pushed me out. Always the victim, she said with a dismissive wave. Some things never change, and some people never stop rewriting history, I shot back. Sharon lifted her wine glass, her smile venomous. I'd like to propose a toast, she announced, ignoring my comment. To family, real family, the kind that sticks together through thick and thin. Her eyes slid pointedly past me as everyone raised their glasses. Even Dad, though he looked pained as he did so. It was the same message Sharon had been sending for years. You don't belong here. You never did. You never will. In that moment, watching my father's defeated posture and Sharon's triumphant smile, something shifted inside me. I'd spent years letting her barbs wound me, believing on some level that I deserved them for abandoning my father to her influence. But I hadn't abandoned anyone. I'd saved myself. And there was something else, something I'd done that none of them knew about. A truth that would shatter Sharon's carefully constructed narrative once and for all. I smiled and raised my glass. To family, I echoed, in all its complicated forms. Sharon's smile faltered slightly at my unexpected diplomacy. She had no idea what was coming. As Sharon served pie with theatrical flourish, I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. Grateful for the distraction, I excused myself to the bathroom, the small powder room off the hallway that still had the same seashell-patterned wallpaper from my childhood. Locking the door behind me, I leaned against the sink and exhaled. The message was from Maya. SOS if you need rescue. I can fake an emergency. I smiled despite everything. Good friends were the family you chose. Looking at my reflection in the mirror, I was transported back to another day in this same bathroom. 3 years ago, the last time I'd been in this house. It had been an unseasonably warm February afternoon when Dad called. I was in my office, working on a pitch for what would become our first major client, Liv. His voice was strange, tight with barely controlled panic. Dad, what's wrong? Nothing. The hasty denial followed by a long pause told me everything I needed to know. Just checking in. Dad, I said firmly. Tell me. Another pause then. I've made some mistakes, Liv. The story spilled out in fragments. The hardware store had been struggling for years. Big box competitors slowly bleeding away his customer base. He'd taken out a second mortgage on the house to keep the business afloat. Then the housing market crashed. Sharon had continued spending as if nothing had changed. Luxury vacations for the boys, remodeling the kitchen, her country club membership. We're 6 months behind on payments, he finally admitted. The bank, they're starting foreclosure next week. How much do you owe? I asked, already opening my banking app. Liv, I didn't call for money. How much, Dad? He told me. The number was staggering. Nearly all of what I'd saved from the past 5 years of hard work and careful investment. I'll wire it today, I said without hesitation. I can't let you do that, he protested. It's my mess. Dad, listen to me. You paid for my college. You supported me when I moved to the city. Let me help you now. Sharon would never accept it, he said quietly. Then don't tell her it came from me, I suggested. Tell her the bank made a mistake, or you found an old investment, or whatever you need to say. He was silent for so long I thought we'd lost the connection. Finally, he whispered, Thank you, Liv. I'll pay you back somehow, I promise. I had made the transfer that afternoon, calling in a few favors to expedite the process. The next day, I drove the 3 hours to my father's house to deliver the paperwork in person. Sharon had opened the door, surprised and immediately suspicious of my unannounced visit. "Your father's at the store," she'd said, not inviting me in. "I know. I need to talk to you, actually." Reluctantly, she'd stepped aside. We sat in the living room, the same room where I'd later have pre-Thanksgiving drinks with my stepbrothers, and I handed her an envelope. "What's this?" she'd asked. "The mortgage is paid off," I said simply. "In full." Her face had cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally, anger. "What did you do?" "I took care of it," I replied. "The bank won't be calling anymore." "We don't need your charity," she'd snapped, pride warring with relief on her face. "It's not charity. It's family." She'd stared at me for a long moment. "Does Robert know about this?" "He knows it's handled. He doesn't need to know the details." "And what do you want in return?" Her voice was cold, suspicious. The question had stunned me. "Nothing. I want nothing." "Everyone wants something," she'd insisted. I'd stood then, suddenly tired. "That might be how your world works, Sharon. It's not how mine does." I'd left specific instructions with the bank. My name was to be kept off all paperwork. The mortgage would show as satisfied in full, but any inquiries about the source of payment would be met with standard confidentiality protocols. I'd even paid extra to ensure this discretion. Dad had called later that night, his voice choked with emotion. "I don't know how to think you live. Just take care of yourself," I'd told him. "That's all I want." We talked for almost an hour that night, the longest conversation we'd had in years. He'd promised things would be different, that he'd stand up to Sharon more, that we'd rebuild our relationship. But 2 days later, Sharon had called me in a fury. Apparently, she'd found the receipt for the wire transfer in Dad's wallet. She'd accused me of trying to buy my way back into the family, of making her look incompetent, of undermining her authority in her own home. "You think you're so much better than us," she'd hissed. "With your fancy job and your city apartment. You think throwing money at problems makes you important." "That wasn't my intention," I'd tried to explain. "Stay away from this family," she'd said. "We don't need you or your money." Dad never called to contradict her. The promised reconnection never happened. And for 3 years, I'd honored Sharon's demand, keeping my distance, telling myself it was better this way. A knock on the bathroom door jolted me back to the present. "Olivia?" It was Dad. "Are you okay in there?" I splashed water on my face and opened the door.
"Just needed a minute," I said.
He searched my face, concern evident in his eyes. "Sharon can be a lot. I'm sorry if—" "Don't apologize for her," I said quietly. "Not anymore." He sighed, suddenly looking every one of his 62 years. "I just want peace, Liv." "Is that so wrong?" "Peace at what cost, Dad?" I asked. "Your relationship with your daughter? Your health? Your happiness?" He flinched. "It's complicated." "It's really not," I replied. "But we're not having this conversation in the hallway. Let's go back." As we returned to the dining room, Sharon was in full performance mode, serving pie with exaggerated care. "Everything all right?" she asked with manufactured concern. "Fine," I replied, taking my seat. Just remembering the last time I was here. Sharon's hand faltered slightly as she set a plate in front of me. "I'm not sure what you mean." 3 years ago, February, I said, watching her face carefully. "When I paid off your mortgage." The pie server clattered to the table. Tyler and Jason exchanged confused glances. "What is she talking about?" Jason asked. For the first time that evening, Sharon had nothing to say. The silence that followed my statement was absolute. For a moment, it seemed like everyone at the table had stopped breathing. Jason recovered first. "Wait, what do you mean you paid off the mortgage?" "Our mortgage." Tyler's eyes darted between his mother and me. "That's ridiculous. Mom and Dad refinanced. They told us." I kept my gaze fixed on Sharon, whose face had drained of all color. "Is that what you told them? That you refinanced?" Dad placed his napkin carefully on the table. "Olivia, perhaps this isn't the time." "When is the time, Dad?" I asked quietly. "It's been 3 years. 3 years of Sharon pretending that I abandoned this family, when the truth is she pushed me away after I saved your home. Sharon's hands trembled slightly as she set down the pie server. Robert, I won't sit here and be ambushed like this. It's not an ambush, I said. It's the truth. Do you want to tell them, or should I? Tyler stood abruptly. Tell us what? What the hell is going on? Dad looked at me with pleading eyes, but I'd carried this secret long enough. I took a deep breath and turned to my stepbrothers. 3 years ago, the bank was about to foreclose on this house. Dad was 6 months behind on mortgage payments. The hardware store was struggling, and I glanced at Sharon. Certain spending habits weren't helping. That's a lie, Sharon hissed, but her face told a different story. I transferred $287,432.18 to clear the outstanding mortgage balance. I continued. Every penny I had saved. I asked the bank to keep my name off the paperwork. I didn't want recognition. I just wanted to help Dad. Jason sank back into his chair. That's a lot of money. It was everything I had at the time, I said simply. Tyler looked skeptical. If that's true, why haven't we heard about this before? Why would Mom and Dad hide it? Dad's voice was barely audible. Because your mother asked me to. All eyes turned to him. He looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of his confession. Sharon found the wire transfer receipt, he continued, not meeting anyone's gaze. She didn't want the boys to know we were in financial trouble. She didn't want anyone to know Olivia had helped us. Because it would make her look bad, I added. It would damage the perfect family image she constructed. Sharon slammed her hand on the table, making the china rattle. You have no right to judge me. You have no idea what it's like to hold a family together, to maintain standards, to what, Sharon? I interrupted. To spend money you didn't have? To drive Dad's business into the ground with your country club memberships and luxury vacations? Stop it, Dad said firmly, surprising all of us. This isn't productive. Sharon turned to him, her expression a mixture of betrayal and fury. You're taking her side? After everything I've done for you? I'm not taking sides, he replied wearily. But I'm tired of pretending. Tired of the lies. He looked at me, his eyes filled with sorrow. I should have stood up to her when she told you to stay away. I should have told the boys the truth about who saved their home. I was a coward, Liv, and I'm sorry. The raw honesty in his voice brought unexpected tears to my eyes. This was the father I remembered, the man who had taught me integrity, even if he'd forgotten it himself for a while. Jason looked bewildered. So, let me get this straight. We almost lost the house. Olivia paid off the entire mortgage. And you 2-inch. He gestured to his mother and my father. Pretended it never happened, and then shut Olivia out. It wasn't like that, Sharon insisted. Robert was going to pay her back. We had a plan. A plan you never implemented, I pointed out. I didn't want repayment, Sharon. I never asked for a dime. Then what did you want? She demanded. What do you want now? Showing up after all this time, bringing this up at Thanksgiving dinner? I looked around the table, at my father's tired face, at Jason's confusion, at Tyler's thinly veiled shock. Even Sharon, beneath her anger, looked somehow broken. I wanted to belong, I said quietly. That's all I ever wanted. To be part of this family, messy as it is. But you made it clear that wasn't possible. So, why come back now? Tyler asked, his usual smugness replaced by genuine curiosity. I glanced at Dad. Because he asked me to, and because despite everything, he's still my father. Dad reached across the table and took my hand. Sharon stiffened beside him, but remained silent. I never cashed the check, Dad said suddenly. What check? I asked. The one I sent you last year. $10,000. The first installment on what we owe you. I shook my head, confused. I never received any check. Dad turned to Sharon, his expression hardening. You told me you mailed it. You showed me the receipt from the bank. Sharon's face flushed. I was going to, but we needed that money for Tyler's condo down payment. Jesus, Mom, Tyler muttered, covering his face with his hands. I did it for you. Sharon snapped. Everything I've done has been for you boys. Not everything, I said quietly. The second Lexus in the driveway. The renovated master bath. The 3 vacations last year. Those weren't for the boys, Sharon. Those were for you. Dad stood up abruptly, pressing his hand to his chest. For a terrifying moment, I thought he was having a heart attack. But he merely walked to the sideboard and pulled out a folder from the drawer. I've kept track of everything, he said, returning to the table. Every penny we owe Olivia. Every payment we should have made. With interest. He opened the folder and slid it toward me. Inside was a meticulously detailed spreadsheet showing a payment plan spanning 15 years. My heart contracted at the sight of my father's careful handwriting. I never wanted your money, Dad, I said gently. I know, he replied, but I want you to have it anyway. It's the right thing to do. Sharon stood up, her chair scraping loudly against the hardwood floor. I think I need some air, she announced to no one in particular and walked stiffly out of the room. In her absence, the atmosphere shifted subtly. Jason poured himself another glass of wine and then, after a moment's consideration, filled my glass too. So you own a marketing company? He asked, making a visible effort to change the subject. I nodded, grateful for the gesture. Digital marketing consultancy. We're doing well. Clearly, Tyler muttered, but without his earlier derision. Dad cleared his throat. I have something else to tell you all. I'm selling the hardware store, Dad announced, his voice steady despite the weight of his words. The statement silenced the table. Jason's fork clattered against his plate.
What?
Why? He asked. Dad sighed. It's time. Midwest Home Supply made an offer I've finally accepted. Tyler shook his head. But it's been in the family for 3 generations. I know. Dad's smile held resignation and relief. But my heart isn't in it anymore. Literally and figuratively. Is your condition worse than you've admitted? I asked quietly. Dad met my gaze directly. The doctors say I need to reduce stress. The store hasn't been profitable for years, Liv. I've been working 60-hour weeks just to keep it afloat. Does Sharon know? He nodded. She's against it. Says I'm throwing away my father's legacy. It's your life, I said. Grandpa would understand that. The back door slammed as Sharon returned from her cooling-off period. She swept into the dining room, composure partially restored though her eyes remained cold. Discussing me in my absence? She asked, resuming her seat with theatrical dignity. Dad was telling us about selling the store, Jason explained. Sharon's lips thinned. A mistake he'll regret once this emotional episode passes. It's not a mistake, Dad said firmly. The deal closes next month. Sharon's eyes widened. Next month? But you said. I signed the papers yesterday. Dad's voice was quiet but unyielding. It's done. A tense silence followed, broken only by the distant ticking of the grandfather clock. What will you do? I finally asked. Dad's expression softened. Travel, maybe. Read those books I've been collecting. Learn to relax. On what income? Sharon demanded. The sale includes a generous pension, Dad replied. Plus our investments, which are doing well despite what Tyler suggested. My stepbrother had the grace to look embarrassed about his earlier exaggeration. I checked my watch. Nearly 8 o'clock. I should go, I said, folding my napkin. I have an early flight tomorrow. To where? Jason asked, seeming genuinely interested. Chicago. Finalizing the lease on our new office. Dad nodded. The satellite location you mentioned. Yes. I hesitated. You should come visit sometime. When you're feeling better. The view from our building is spectacular. Sharon made a small noise of disapproval, but remained silent. Dad reached for my hand. I'd like that, Liv. I stood, gathering my belongings. Thank you for dinner. You're leaving?
Just like that.
Sharon asked incredulously. After dropping your bombshell and turning everyone against me? I met her gaze steadily. No one is against you, Sharon. This isn't about taking sides. Easy for you to say, she hissed. You swoop in after years away, play the hero with your mortgage story. It's not a story, Tyler interrupted, surprising everyone. It's what happened. We've seen the proof. He looked at me with newfound respect. You didn't have to do that for us. I didn't do it for you, I replied honestly. I did it for Dad. And out of the goodness of your heart, I suppose, Sharon said bitterly. I sighed, suddenly tired of the endless battle. Believe what you want, Sharon. You always have. Dad grabbed his jacket from the coat rack. I'll walk you to your car. Outside, the night had turned cold and clear, stars pricking the black canvas of sky. Our breath formed clouds in the November air. I'm sorry, Liv, Dad said when we reached my car. For everything. I know, I replied, and found that I meant it. The anger I'd carried for years had faded to a dull ache, overshadowed by concern for his health and a strange new feeling of liberation. Will you come back? He asked. For Christmas, maybe? I considered this, remembering all the promises made and broken. Let's start smaller. Coffee next week? I can drive down on Wednesday. Relief washed over his face. I'd love that. I unlocked my car, but paused. The store sale, are you really at peace with it? He gazed back at the house. It's time for a new chapter. I've spent too many years trying to preserve the past at the expense of the present. I recognized the double meaning. Dad, about the mortgage money. He held up his hand. We'll figure it out. But I want you to know I never saw it as charity. I saw it as love. Unexpected tears pricked my eyes. It was. We embraced, a real hug this time, not the awkward greeting from earlier. As I got into my car, the front door opened, spilling light onto the porch. Olivia, Sharon called, her voice sharp. You forgot your pie. I turned to see her standing in the doorway, a plastic container in her outstretched hand. Her face was unreadable in the shadows. Keep it, I called back. I don't need it. The double meaning wasn't lost on any of us. Sharon remained motionless as I closed my car door and started the engine. As I pulled away, I caught a final glimpse in my rearview mirror. Dad walking back toward the house, Sharon still standing in the doorway, a tableau of a marriage at a crossroads. I didn't know what would happen to them after tonight. Whether the revelations would spark lasting change or merely create a new facade. Whether my relationship with Dad could truly be rebuilt or if we'd slip back into old patterns. But for the first time in years, I felt free of guilt, of the need for Sharon's approval, of the weight of unspoken truths. My heels had indeed walked on the hardwood floors Sharon once told me I didn't belong on. But more importantly, I had walked away on my terms, head held high, no longer the forgotten daughter, but the woman strong enough to speak her truth and reclaim her place, not in their house, but in her own story. As I drove toward the life I'd built for myself, my phone buzzed with a text from Maya. Survived. I smiled and dictated my response at the next red light. More than survived. Won. Because sometimes winning isn't about defeating someone else. Sometimes it's about freeing yourself from a game you never should have been playing in the first place.